Good afternoon and welcome to today's webinar. The theme of today is call tracking metrics and Facebook. I didn't prepare a deck today because we're going to be doing everything pretty much in the apps, but I usually like to start with a few exercises just to make sure everyone can both hear and see me or see my screen. So if you can hear me, will you raise your hand on the GoToWebinar control panel? Just do some quick maintenance to make sure we're all in a good place. Okay, I see the hands going up. Great, great. So I'm going to pull them down. Now, if you can see my screen, which should be on the Support Hub page, will you raise your hands again? Okay, I see the hands going up. Excellent. Okay, great. Looks like we're all in a good place where we can both hear and see my screen. Excellent. There's also a question box in the GoToWebinar control panel. If you have any questions during the presentation today, feel free to enter those at any time. We are going to review the questions at the end, but if it's in your head now or during the presentation, enter it, and then that way I can bring them up at the end of the presentation. The presentation today will probably be around 20 to 45 minutes, depending on how many questions we get. My name is Jessica Michaels, and I will be your presenter. So with that, let's go ahead and jump on into this. Okay, so this is actually the third day of this little mini series that we're doing. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knew where these recordings were going to be posted. So this is our support hub here. And right here we have our recorded trainings. So if we click into here, it's going to have our typical 5-day trainings that we do on the fundamentals. And then here I'm adding these down here for this week. So these are kind of spotlight themed. So the first one we did was what you need to know about the smart router. Yesterday, we took a deep dive into our integrations with the Google Data Studio. And then the recording from today, I will also be adding right below here. I'll try to get that up by the end of today. If not, it'll be there first thing tomorrow morning. All right, so with that, let's talk about Facebook. For the presentation today, I'm going to be using my demo account of CocoLoco. So what's kind of fun with that is we actually have a real fake website for that. It has a real Facebook ads, a real Facebook business page. So it's going to be our demo for today. Okay. So to start talking about Facebook, I thought it would be important to start with reviewing some of the core concepts, and we're going to start with the tracking sources today. So let's check out our tracking sources. So again, this is a already built out account. Oops, the wrong one. So for this account, I have 4 different tracking sources for Facebook. One for Facebook paid, so that's going to be any paid calls that are coming where somebody clicked a Facebook ad, went to your website, and then placed a phone call. So much like how we work with our Google integrations. I have a Facebook one that's off-site. So with this one, this would be the actual phone number that I put into the information box inside of Facebook. This would be if somebody is inside of Facebook and then wanted to place a call. So that would technically, oops, this is on-site. That would be this one. This one would be the off-site one. So anyone in or on your Facebook page, if they place a phone call, that we wouldn't be able to attribute a session to it. So it's best that that be an offline source. And for this Facebook one, this is for someone who goes from your Facebook page, clicks on any of your Facebook content, and then is directed to your website. So the real difference between these two is that this will be specifically for paid, while this would be kind of like your Facebook organic traffic. Okay, and then this one here is also an offsite Facebook source. This is because I was doing a Facebook click-to-call campaign. So that would just be an ad where the call to action was to actually place a phone call. So I wanted to track those calls unique. So I created my own tracking source for them. Okay, so let's take a look at how these different sources are configured. I'll do that by go ahead and clicking edit. Now, 3 of the 4 are pulled from our presets, which I would always recommend you utilizing first before creating your own sources. We do have a whole handful of presets, which is just pre-configured sources for you, already built out. So this one was pulled from the Facebook paid. So if we select that, it's actually going to fill in all the information for us. So it put in the name, it's put in the description, it made it an on-site because it will be dynamically swapping. And then we have the trigger right here. So this is going to be what tells our system to swap for this tracking source and tracking number. So in that case, we're going to be looking for the UTM parameter of UTM underscore source equals Facebook. Now, right now, Facebook doesn't automatically add these in. They are working with some new tracking, but this isn't going to be automatic. So with this, you will have to add this into the destination URL in your ad copy, which I'll be showing later on today of how to do all that. And I also have a pretty handy builder that I use right here. This is just Google's URL builder, but it's real nice because it does all the tagging for you, so you don't have to worry about typing all that out. Okay, so that is the Facebook paid source. And then let me go back. For this one, this would be if somebody comes from Facebook to your website in a non-paid, down a non-paid avenue. So in this case, we're looking for the referring URL, which is just saying that this person was referred from Facebook, and the landing URL would be blank. So it's just anyone who was pointed from Facebook to your website, then we would dynamically swap for this. Now this as well is a preset. So that is just this one right here. Okay, so let's go back. And then I have my Facebook click to call. So this again is specifically for the case of an ad that is just pushing, or the call to action is to place a call. So I wanted a unique number for that so I could attribute it to this. So with my unique number, I created a unique source. So this was a custom one, but because it's an offline source, as in they're just clicking an ad and placing a phone call, they don't go to your website, so there's no session tracking. Setting this up is pretty simple. All I did was just rename it, and then I don't have to do any configurations. All right, and then the last one we have is another offsite one. This is for Facebook page. So again, this is for someone who is in Facebook and on your business page. They call the number directly there without going to your website. So this one as well is a preset. So if we scroll down, it's in here somewhere, Facebook page. So again, I always recommend checking out the presets first, just because it really simplifies it for you, where we do all the configurations and naming for you. Okay, so that is the 4 different tracking sources that I have for Facebook. So next, let's go ahead and take a look at the call log. So here I just put in a search for my Facebook paid calls. Now, ideally, I believe this is what a lot of us are going to be looking for. We want to see the campaign attribution coming through. And I think this is one of the kind of a misleading conception or concept of what our integration does. We do have a direct integration with Facebook. However, it's not actually pulling this information from the ad platform like we do with Google and Bing. This is coming directly from the URL. So if we were to check this, now here's the landing page URL, and this is where we actually got all that campaign information. So this is coming from the landing page URL, and we're just able to read that and attribute it. So if you do want to be tracking all the parameters around the campaign, you can absolutely do that, but that is not going to be automated through our integration with Facebook. That will be attributed through the UTM tags in the URL, which again, I'll be showing that a little later on how to do that. Okay, so enough about that. Let's go ahead and set up this integration. So to get to our integrations, we go to settings, and then we have integrations over here. And then we could always search if we're looking for Facebook, and it'll pull it right to the top. and then I come in here. Now, in this case, I am not connected. I have been connected and disconnected. So if you haven't gone through the whole setup before, mine will look a little bit different because it does remember some of my settings. So actually, it's a little easier if you have connected and then disconnected. When you set it up the second time, it'll be a lot easier. So I'm going to go ahead and click link to Facebook. So this is actually just going to be pulling from my browser. So because I'm logged into Facebook, it's going to know who I am and be able to connect to it. So now that it has synced up, it wants me to select my business manager account, which I do have access to a couple of them. So I'm going to select the one of where I want to be sending my phone calls into. So I will select my CocoLoco account and then hit save. Okay, and next part, we actually have to go inside of the Facebook integration to set up, where we need to add call tracking metrics as a partner inside of our business account or our business settings. So this right here is actually something we can grab. That's our partner ID. So we can go ahead and grab that. And then I can come inside my business settings. Now here you can see we don't have any partners yet. So my next step will be to add a partner. And then I can put in my partner ID. It'll bring me to this page. Now, it used to be a lot different. Facebook's always making changes, which are actually very beneficial, but I think this part can be a little confusing. You can actually give us access to a lot of things we don't need access to. So I would be careful with that because I've seen that we have been given access to things we don't need access to. So the only thing we need access to is the offline event sets. So if you think about comparing this to our Google integration, we send events into Google Analytics. Now, in this case, we're sending offline event sets very similarly into Facebook. So here, I've actually already created my offline event sets. So I could choose which ones I want to send our call events into. I could choose both of them. Then from over here, it would be how do we want to be able to handle these. Able to manage the offline event sets would be the best option because that just allows us to send them all through seamlessly. Other than that, we're really not touching your data. And then hit save changes. Okay, so with that, we now have access to send your calls, texts, and forms into these offline event sets. So if we wanted to view those, we can do that by coming to your business settings and then going to offline events. Now here's the two different event sets that I have. Now I created two different ones because there's some different kind of fun ways that we can handle sending our data into Facebook. So one could just be all calls and one could be, calls from the Facebook ads. So this one, all of our calls from my call tracking metrics account, I want to dump in here. And then my calls specific to the ads, I want to dump into this bucket. So just a different way to separate my data touch points. And then I briefly wanted to touch on how Google handles processing the data. Let me see, I'm trying to pull up a screenshot to show this. 1 second. Here we go. Okay, now as we see here, I have sent 4 calls in and I have a 0% match rate and a 0% attribution rate. Now this is actually going to be common, and unfortunately Facebook has very vague documentation on this, but let me pull over my screenshot. Okay, cool, it worked. So, whoops, not that one. So what happens is that it's a process called hashing. And what Facebook is doing is they're not going to attribute the calls to that to a person until you have a large enough sample that it anonymizes it. So 1 second, that screenshot did not have my blurred. Okay. Sorry, that's not going to work. So what happens is that until you have enough people, which would be events, think of events as people, until this number is roughly over somewhere around 1,000. We've just from observation noticed the benchmark is roughly between 1,000 and 1,500. Facebook's not even going to try to match a user to it for protection reasons. And that's a process that they call hashing. So when we send the calls into Facebook, they're going to strip all personal information from them. And then until they have a large enough sample, then they're actually going to try to match those calls to actual Facebook users. And then once you get high enough numbers, then they'll show the match rates. Now, what I don't want to show is people's information. Yeah, so this is kind of a little hack here. Without showing the people's names. So here we can see this person has had, more than 500, but they haven't tried to match, while this one has, just over 1,000, and then all of a sudden they're going to match. And then what this match rate is saying is of these, 1,100 people, they were able to match 96% of them to Facebook users, which is actually, I think, pretty impressive because much different than Google Analytics and Bing, we're not matching sessions together. In this case, we're actually matching a session to a person, like an actual Facebook user. So here in this one, we can see they have about 2,700 events set in, and they were able to match that to 98% of it. So that's a really impressive match rate, I think. And then the lower one we can see here has 40, and of course they haven't tried to match yet. So there is a little bit of a magic number, which is usually right around this 1,100. But until that point, Facebook isn't even going to look at them. So they're just going to sit there and they won't be able to go into your ads as conversions. So food for thought, keep that in mind. It is pretty important. So with that, we still have a little bit more setup to do on the call tracking metrics side, and that's going to be configuring the triggers of when we want to send calls into these event sets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this event set ID. Why is it pulling from over there? There we go. And we'll head back here. So we send the events into Facebook with the triggers. So I can say, let's view my trigger. It'll automatically create one for you, but it won't add this workflow here. So what I have here is it's an offline, it'll name it Facebook Offline Conversions. The trigger is set for the end of the activity. And then I have it go for all activities, which is tracking numbers. And then here's where I can decide, I only want this to work for my Facebook paid. So I want to send these ones into a separate bucket than all my other calls. So I told it to only include these two tracking sources. And then here's where I would put in the event set ID. Now, if we go back here, that is actually this one, because all calls from my Facebook ads, I want to go into this bucket, which unfortunately I don't have any data in. So it does have a few requirements. One is that you have an event name, so we can send them in as leads. There's this drop down, so these are all the options within your Facebook account. So with these, they will go in as offline lead. If it was purchase, it would be offline purchase. But I think lead makes the most sense. You'll need to set your currency and your value, which we just put in as seconds of talk time. I've seen other people, if you don't want to use a token, you could just, go here, say 1 or, 100. So there's different ways that you can enter that. And really, that's it for setting up the trigger. So again, this one I have designed specifically for my Facebook paid sources. So I can go ahead and hit save. And then if we go back to our triggers, believe I have another Facebook one. Nope, this is the same one. So what I want to do is I actually want to create one more. And I'm going to say Facebook offline, all non-paid. Okay, and then I like to say just at the end, and then I'm going to say for all activities, and then hit save. And I'm going to add a workflow. And with this, I'm just going to say if the type is inbound. So if it's an inbound call, I want to send that event into Facebook. So here we go. And now I got to grab my event set ID again. And I would put that in. That one can also go under lead. I don't think it matters. Sends US dollars. And with this one, why not? We'll say duration. And that's all I need here. And then I can go ahead and hit save. Okay, so a little background on why I would want to do this is because a lot of people think kind of like the other trigger I made, they only want to send their Facebook calls into Facebook, which I can understand that logic, but sending all of your calls into Facebook allows you to create different audiences. So there's all sorts of statistics around phone calls and how, a phone call lead is 10 times higher. I think it's actually more like 65 times higher of converting into a sale than a form fill. So when you think about that and you think about the match rate that Facebook is able to give you, it's I think very powerful to be able to send all of your calls into Facebook. And then from there, you can create different audiences. So you could do a lookalike audience so that you can have your ads try to target, very similar people as the ones that are placing phone calls to your business. Or you can create a custom audience for these people that maybe you want to send them remarketing ads. So even though all your calls coming in might not be from Facebook sources, it does make sense to send all of those calls into Facebook so that you can create different audiences and target them very direct. So there is a lot of advantages of sending more than just your paid calls into Facebook. Okay. So that is the events part of it. We covered the integration and the triggers and the audiences. So the next part is to talk about the actual conversions. Now, to go back to the attribution part of this, and this is true that until you have these many people, they're not even going to try to match. So you do need to have a lot of activity in order for your calls to end up in Facebook as conversions. We like to make that very clear because that's not something we can really handle. That's all on the Facebook side. So once you have that volume, then your calls will start to come into Facebook as conversions. And those would show as offline leads, like I said before. So we can come in here and I can see, which of my, let's go to the campaign. Yeah, which of my campaigns have been driving offline leads, my total, my cost per lead, and so forth. So that will all seamlessly come through as soon as you reach that minimum threshold for them to try to match that person or that caller to a person in Facebook. So hopefully I've made that clear. So with that, if we did want to see the attribution from the call log, go back, let's say Facebook. So if we wanted to see the attribution like we're getting here, which would then go into our reporting, we can do that easily, but that would just be set up through the ad itself. Now here's the ad I had that was actually, a click to call was the call to action. But let's take a look at that one. So from here, we can also put in a link. So this is the website URL link that I provided for this. And so anyone could call, but if they actually clicked anywhere in it, it would take us to our website. And then we're able to get all that attribution because our tracking script is actually just reading all the tags in this URL. So if you wanted to build your own, they do have tracking down here, but we have noticed that it's not 100% reliable. So I personally just like to add it all in right here because that will work 100% of the time. So if we wanted to build a new destination URL, again, let me put this into the chat because I often refer to this link as my best friend because I use it all the time. But yep, so that's in the chat so everyone can access that. And okay, so this is my website, cocoloco.life. And then here I just filled in the different parameters. So the source, I made Facebook, the medium, CPC, the campaign, truffles. The term could be the individual keyword. I personally don't really put those in often because usually one ad might be targeting more than one keyword or something like that. And the content I did for this one was spring savings. So what's nice is as you put all this in, it built it for you down here. So then you can copy that. And then you can just head over to your ads manager and then paste it in. Now this is an old one, so I don't think it'll let me because it's expired. But by doing that, then we'll be able to pull all that data from the landing page URL and attribute it here. And if you're sending your calls into analytics, that data will also pass into analytics. So that way, all of your reporting can be consistent through the different process or platforms. Okay, so the last piece on this that I was going to talk about is the form integration, which was I set up for the first time this week, and I was actually very surprised with how simple it was. Now I'm also a little bit more savvy on more of the programming side, but what it does is it utilizes a form reactor. So to do this, you would have to have form reactors on your plan, which I believe they are included in the contact center plan, and then they're now offered as an add-on for the marketing plan. So it's a nice little option so you don't have to completely upgrade. But what I needed to do is create a form reactor that matched my Facebook lead form. So you just want to make sure that the fields are the same. Anytime you're using a form reactor, the requirement for it to get into call tracking metrics, it's just going to be that it has a phone number field. So, think we're call tracking, it has to have a phone number in order for us to attribute it. Okay. So what I did is I created a form on my Facebook business page, and then that can be used in your leads. And then from there, I'm using Zapier to send the data from Facebook into call tracking metrics. And it was a very easy zap. So let me go to my zaps. And then here we go. So let's take a look at this. Now, if you've never used Zapier before, I always say Zapier or Zapier, but it's Zapier makes you happier. So it's Zap. So I say it wrong all the time. I apologize. So what I do is you connect this to your Facebook account, and then it'll let you choose which form, and then so we can actually walk through this. So they have a Facebook leads connector, so that makes it real easy. And then I want to trigger it when a new lead is created. It's connected to my account, and then it wants to know what page and what form. So if you have multiple forms, you could select them from here. And then, it's going to test pulling one in to make sure it was capturing it, which we can see it did, pulled all that data from my form. And then what we do is we use a webhook to post that data inside of Call Tracking Metrics. So we choose webhook. We're going to be posting it. And then I actually pulled the help article. Let me put this into the chat as well. So that will walk you through all the little steps that I'm going over right now. But on the form reactor side, there is a piece you need. So way down on the bottom, you'll need the API. So this is going to tell us to map it to this individual form. So we'd put that in here. We'd make the type JSON or JSON. And then here's where we're just mapping our fields over. How did that happen? We have an L out of place. There we go. So these are the form fields from Facebook, and we're saying take these and map them to these fields in Call Tracking Metrics. And then this is my API access code. So that's what allows us to connect those. So with this, as Facebook lead forms are filled out, it will then send the data from Facebook into Call Tracking Metrics. We can have it run a test, and let's retest and then send. And so that says it was successful. So it's able to pull that lead and push it into Call Tracking Metrics as a form fill, which we should be able to see. So it should have just came through. So that would actually be right now. And then it pushed through, so you can see it was a form fill, and that was the form information. So pretty cool, easy way to send your forms from Facebook into our system, so that way we really have a holistic view of all the activity taking place as far as leads, whether it be phone calls or form fills inside of Call Tracking Metrics. So with that, that is what I had prepared for you today. And now I will check out the questions. Hopefully this was very informative. Somebody said, do you have more events if you change your date range? Yes. So the events are for a certain date range, which I believe by default they show about 7 days. So 4, and then let's say 30. Yeah, so it will change with it. So I hope I answered that correctly. Somebody says, so can you make a lookalike audience based on calls? Absolutely. So it could really be based on calls, texts, and forms inside of Call Tracking Metrics. So whatever data we have, we can send into an offline event set. And so from there, you can create lookalike audiences. So absolutely. And I think that's a great use case for our system. This is all from the same person. It says, after you send your forms from Facebook into the system, can you set up a trigger to email the client? Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's one of the awesome things with our system is we can automate like God knows what. So we can email the client. You could trigger an automatic callback using our form reactor. You can email yourself. So there's, you know, so many different possibilities there. So yes, absolutely, we could do that. And then that's awesome. Thank you. You're welcome. I see there's a lot of you on here, so if anyone has any questions, ask away. I'm happy to address them. Again, this is being recorded, and I'll be posting the recording as soon as I can. It takes a little while for it to process in our support hub under our recorded sessions. So all of our great content is living there. I'll wait just another minute to see if we have any other questions come in. And in the meantime, I'll give a little shameless shout out for our upcoming events. So this was day 3 of our mini series. Tomorrow, we're going to be looking at creating are creating custom tracking sources. So today I showed you lots of presets. Presets are awesome, but you can also do so much with custom tracking sources. So we'll be looking at that tomorrow. And then Friday, we'll be looking at exploring the soft phone. We get so many questions in regard to the soft phone. So we're going to look at a lot of the commonly asked questions, and then as well as setting up and configuring your soft phone. Every other week, we do our fundamentals webinar series. We have our new to CTM, so that's really designed for users who haven't used our platform before. Then we have our Google webinar, so it's really Google and attribution based, which goes over the ins and outs of our integrations with Google. And then we have our advanced webinar, which is kind of like phase 2 of the new to CTM. It'll get into more complex or advanced setups. And then the following week, we have a spotlight webinar where we're going to be having 2 guests join us, where we'll be talking about eliminating the conversion blind spot. So that'll be a great one. I'll be talking about quality and scoring calls, and then we have 2 guests who'll be talking about their use cases for optimizing campaigns. So that'll be a great webinar to attend. All right, with that, I'm not seeing any other questions coming in, so we all must be good. So have a fantastic day, and I hope to see you all tomorrow. Take care.